Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and today I'd like to talk about the Brexit-inspired assault on expertise. So there has now become evidence for the long-held belief that the £8 million that Aaron Banks pumped into the Leave campaign, which an investigation had already determined it wasn't his money, that it had been illegally sourced, has indeed come from the Russian state. So we have had, as if anyone needed telling, major foreign interference in the Brexit process. Preceding that, for many years, we've had media barons using their news platforms to push an anti-EU agenda in order to lay the ground for all this. In tandem with that, you've got various Conservative MPs, even the majority of pro-EU ones, have been happy to blame the EU for their own failures due to political expediency. It's always nice to be able to blame someone else, and it played to their donors, the media and the grassroots as well. It was just very short-term thinking that's now come on to bite them on the arse. And in addition, the living standards of ordinary Britons has not been keeping pace with the increasing wealth of the nation. The gap between richest and poorest has been widening. Of course, this is the fault of our own governments for promoting inefficient use of public money into private hands, of failing to promote or maintain British industry, and allowing the country to become a huge tax haven and money laundering service for the wealthiest. But, you know, the push was to blame the EU for all this, not our own government, even though you don't see the same behaviour across the EU. And yes, even Labour governments as well didn't do enough to stop it, though at least they didn't blame the EU, at least while I was politically aware. But none of these factors, although they're obviously contributory factors towards Brexit, not one of them could have led to Brexit, but for one enabling feature: opposition to expertise. A truly blinkered approach to the whole thing by listening to the ignorant and self-serving and ignoring those who actually know what they're talking about and have nothing to gain by hoodwinking us. Economists have said that Brexit would crush our economy. People didn't believe them. Business leaders said Brexit would crush British industry and cause lots of unemployment. People didn't believe them. Many still don't, even when it's happening. The people who actually conduct international trade agreements said that we won't get better trade agreements than we already have as part of the EU. People didn't believe them. And now look, not only has it been proven that we can't get trade agreements even on the same terms as with the EU, because Liam Fox has tried and he has failed, but our government are desperate to land a deal with the US that will see us being fed food which is hazardous to health, having our NHS completely sold off. And make no mistake about that. The NHS in 10 years' time could be gone. It'll be there in name, I'm sure. It's just that all of that public money will then go into private insurance companies, and those who can't afford it, because it won't be national insurance anymore, those who can't afford it can't have medical care. Simple as that. The deal would also have to have us favour goods made in the US over UK ones. So that would encourage, of course, more UK manufacturers to relocate overseas. They won't even be able to sell their goods in their own country, and much less anywhere else, so they'll have to go elsewhere. And it was Michael Gove, of course, who said, people are sick of experts. And the crazy thing is that many people would agree with that statement. But let's turn it on its head. If your plumbing goes and your house is flooding, would you refuse to call a plumber because you're sick of experts? If you break your leg, would you refuse the services of a nurse or a doctor because you're sick of experts? If you find yourself in legal difficulty, would you refuse the services of a solicitor because you're sick of experts? I could go on. The fact is that people aren't sick of experts, even the ones who agree with Gove on the subject of that statement. When people have it turned onto them, when people recognise that they are in personal difficulty, they absolutely seek out experts. They are grateful for the expertise, in fact. But the economy is not the personal concern of an individual. The jobs market is not the concern of an ordinary man or woman in the street. Trade agreements are also not the concern of an ordinary citizen. So most people don't have anything to do with experts in these areas or anything to do with these areas. So it's easy to dismiss those who are experts in those fields because they'll never personally need them. And some people will say, oh, but they got these things wrong. Well, actually, no, they didn't, not really. Much of the predictions have been proven to be true, but the government are fiddling figures and just straight out lying about the state of the economy, even when they can't fiddle the figures. And when a prediction isn't exactly in line with the outcome, that doesn't mean to say it's wrong or that we ignore experts. All calculations have an error. coming back to the doctor. If I present symptoms and their first estimate turns out to be incorrect, as has happened before, it's not because doctors are useless, but because it isn't always an exact science. They carry on doing tests until the issue is identified. We still don't say that we should get rid of doctors just because they don't get a diagnosis right first time every time. There are just lots of parameters, some of which may be unknown. And that, of course, then means your conclusion is not correct. That's why it takes experts to make sense of very complex things, and not some yahoo with a pint in one hand and a fag hanging out of his mouth. But it occurs to me that another thing that has led to this notion is the way that the media tries to balance arguments. It's often said of the news media that if one person says that it's bright and clear and another says that it's cloudy and raining, it's not the job of the media to present both statements. They're supposed to look out the window and see who's telling the truth. But that's not what they do. Bullied by populists who intend nothing but harm to our country, they get a chief economist to argue with someone who has no experience or expertise in economics. You get a climate change scientist to debate with an activist who thinks solar panels give you cancer. The best one I ever heard was from an Irish comedian who talked about a programme that he'd seen where a dentist was debating on dental matters with a guy who pulls his own teeth at home. And the problem with this is it presents the idea that there's a debate where there is none. There are some subjects where there is no disagreement amongst experts. Climate change is a classic. As I was growing up, the narrative in the news could easily lead you to believe that there was some uncertainty within the scientific community. There never was. There never has been. There has never been a peer-reviewed scientific paper ever published that ever cast doubt on the conclusions. Not a single one. Ever. And so it is with Brexit. There are no economists saying that Brexit could be good for our economy. They all say that it will damage it badly. And although some businesses will gain from Brexit, because there are always opportunities for certain businesses when a country goes against the wall, the vast majority knows that it will be bad for them. According to the CBI, 96% of businesses in the UK say that they are not prepared for Brexit. And some of the 4% are not necessarily looking forward to it. They've just done all they can already. Not to worry though, Andrea Leadsom says she's going to help businesses by publishing a pamphlet. That'll sort it. Though, if a pamphlet was all that was needed, you have to wonder why she hasn't done it before now. But because the media will put on television an expert economist or business leader or top civil servant, none of whom will be household names, against a populist leader who will be well known, then you present the notion that there is a debate to be had, that there is at least uncertainty in the outcome. Like parents who don't present a united front to their child. That child will pick whichever philosophy suits them. Dad says that they can have sweets before dinner. Mum says that they can't. Kid wants sweets, so they're going with Dad on this one. And nobody questions the expertise of the politician who reckons they know all about international diplomacy, trade deals, the economy, businesses, without any experience in any of these fields, much less all of them. They were interviewed on a serious news programme, and surely a professional news organisation doesn't put an ignoramus on to debate these things. Well, yes, they do. And maybe it's also a symptom of people misunderstanding the role of politicians as well. After all, it's politicians who present speeches on the economy, on international agreements, on jobs. I guess the problem is that a lot of people don't realise that politicians don't actually have very much to do with these things. They dictate policy, they have a major influence on them, but they don't have anything to do with the practicalities. They don't even usually write their own speeches. And that'll be why they keep saying the details aren't important when they're actually interviewed on their own without someone else holding their hand about their proposals. Of course they're not interested in the details. They don't know the details. They don't care about the details because it's not their job to turn their brain fart into reality. But I suppose much of the population simply aren't aware of this. So there it is. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and until next time, I'll see you later.